Try to remember your first birthday. You can't. Try harder. Nothing comes. You have photos, maybe a video, someone else's story about the cake and your face covered in frosting, but the memory itself, the one that should belong to you, isn't there. It was never saved. You spent your first 2 or 3 years learning faster than you ever will again. You learned to walk. You learned an entire language from scratch, with no textbook, just noise slowly turning into meaning. You recognized your mother's face before you could even speak her name. So why is there nothing left? Where did it go? Scientists call this blank space infantile amnesia. Sigmund Freud noticed it over a century ago and assumed it was repression, a wall built to hide something uncomfortable. He was wrong about the reason, but he was right that something deliberate was happening. Here's the strange part. Babies can form memories. Tie a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile above them. Kick, and the mobile spins. Babies just 3 months old learn this in minutes and remember it weeks later. So the memory exists. The problem isn't storage. The problem is retrieval. Picture your brain as a library built while it's already open to the public. The shelves aren't finished. There's no catalog yet. Books get shoved onto random shelves with no labels. Later, when you search those early years, there's no catalog to consult. The memory might still be there. You just can't find it. Patricia Bauer, a psychologist at Emory University, has spent decades studying this. Her research shows the hippocampus, the part of your brain that converts experience into long-term memory, is still under construction well into early childhood. Babies remember in fragments, sensations, associations. But the scaffolding needed to organize those fragments into a story doesn't finish forming until later. There's a second piece, and it isn't about neurons. It's about words. Carol Peterson, a memory researcher at Memorial University of Newfoundland, has tracked children's memories for years. Her findings show that a child's earliest memories often depend on whether they had the vocabulary to describe an experience when it happened. No words yet for scared or hospital. The memory struggles to survive. Language isn't just how you describe a memory later. It's part of how the memory gets built in the first place. So your earliest years didn't vanish because nothing important happened. They vanished because your brain hadn't yet built the tools to file experience away. You were a real person having real experiences. You just weren't yet a person who could store them as a story. This isn't only a human quirk. Scientists find the same pattern in rats and monkeys. Young brains generate new neurons at a furious pace, and many researchers believe that flood of growth overwrites older memory traces before they can be locked in. Growth itself may erase the past to make room for what comes next. The price of learning everything at once might be forgetting almost all of it. Think about what that means for the years that shaped you most. The way you were held. The tone of voice you heard before you understood a sentence. The first time you felt safe, or the first time you didn't. None of that survives as a scene you can replay. But it's inside you, in a different form. It shows up as instinct, as the way your body relaxes around certain people for reasons you can't explain. A sense of the world as safe or unpredictable, built before you had a word for either one. You walk around today, shaped permanently by years you cannot recall a single frame from. Your instincts about who to trust were built during a period that left no footage behind. The architecture survived. The memories didn't. Maybe that isn't a loss so much as a trade. A newborn brain doesn't need to remember individual afternoons. It needs to absorb the pattern behind hundreds of them, fast, and move on. Detailed memory is expensive. It needs a wired hippocampus, a working vocabulary, a stable sense of self solid enough to be the main character of a story. None of that exists yet in a 1-year-old. What exists instead is pure absorption. So next time a photo from when you were 2 gives you nothing, understand what you're seeing. That isn't a stranger wearing your face. That's the version of you who did the hardest cognitive work of your life. Learning language from silence, learning to walk, learning who was safe to love, and never needed to remember doing it. The work shaped you. It never needed a witness. Try to remember your first birthday. You still can't. But now you know why. The memory was never lost. It was simply never meant to be kept, because the person you were back then wasn't finished being built yet.